the end of objects. It could be the museum or the landfill. I think this would be a good word to start talking about the show, because I think this one sort of generated this idea of, for the title being named Total Collapse. I try to push boundaries and try to, collapse things that don't necessarily go together, like opticality and materiality, or painting and sculpture are supposed to be separated, but these works are very, start from a very material and like object-like process. So that was my first, kind of thinking of the idea of collapse. But then thinking further, I've been interested in where pigments come from. A lot of the pigments come from deposits of coal. And I find interesting that coal is a substance that's made from plants that have, kind of gone underground and been compressed, and, for millions of years have sort of gotten compressed into these lumps. And then in a byproduct of tar, there's an oil that has this substance that's called aniline, where a lot of the contemporary pigments are, gathered. So I thought it was very interesting to have this idea of material light sort of accumulated in this substance that we now use to color everything. So in a way, it was like collapsing the atmosphere and the earth. I make a mold. The mold is the width of the work, and then I just pour paint, let it dry. 3-4 days later, I pour another layer. Because it's a mold, I can throw things in it. So in this case, just the cups, So the mold was also acting almost like as a garbage, and the paint was just going around them. And then once the mold is full, I remove the paint from the mold. I have this thick slab. I put it in the machine, and then it gets sliced in many pieces. And then that gets glued onto the panel. When I'm ready to produce the work, I pull out, the drawers. The bigger works are in multiple drawers, so I have to pull them all out. Have to measure and see what format is going to yield. And then these are glued from the center, straight from the center, and they kind of open up, so the error accumulates towards the edges. Where that one, I started from the top, and then I keep going, and the error accumulates on the bottom. And I like that this generates sort of, like a notion of gravity. So depending on the work and how the strips are laid, and then, once I have the final measurement, I make a stretcher, which is a wood panel. It's not a canvas. It needs a hard structure. If you look closely, this work, all these white marks are styrofoam, and I've been thinking of, I think there are many ideas in this work. One of them is the way that we are sort of joining our waste by, we breathe microplastics, and we're consuming all these chemicals. And, pretty much every species on Earth is also, filled with all these human-made, particles. So I think it's very interesting to also pollute the painting with the, sort of the waste that's around my studio. So these are the coffee cups from, like the ritual of drinking coffee at the studio. And so the ritual of layering paint mixes with the ritual of drinking the coffee and then throwing it out. Instead of throwing it out, I'm throwing it in the mold and making it become part of the painting. Also thinking of the landfills as this, massive, layered depositories of, of what we are and who we are. I think that's interesting. And thinking too of the end of objects, it could be the museum or the landfill. So these two things that we don't generally put together, but it's sort of, two ways that something can, where something can end up